Welcome back to our final interview of this morning on News and Views. It is exactly 9:52 a.m. and we cross over to Sweden. We are going to be talking with Associate Professor of Religion at Uppsala University, and of course, that is in Sweden. That is you, Professor Poljarevich. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Good
That's
morning
correct.
to you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Okay, we hear that the Swedish prosecution authority have advised that charges based on hate comments against Muslims, Arabs, and Africans. We also know that a Danish-Swedish far-right Islamophobe has been charged with incitements against an ethnic group and insult for desecrating the Quran in the year 2022. And also that the Swedish prosecution authority did not identify the suspect, but media has rather identified him as Paludan. So, good morning to you, welcome. He's not the only person that was involved in the Quranic burning incidents, was he?
No, not at all. There were several such instances. Most famous amongst who is Salman Momika, who is the one of the
Christian, yeah.
Iraqi immigrants to Sweden, former member of a Christian armed group in Iraq, back in 2000s. Yes.
So I'm wondering why the media has, what do the media know that the general public does not know, that they have named the person as Paludan?
Yeah, so the media obviously are speculating, but since their sources are much more informed than the general public, they have access to the prosecutor's office and to people around the office, and they will. I mean, it doesn't take much to figure out who this is and in which instances, because they have to give particular dates of when these events have occurred, which by which he's charged with. So that's I mean, putting 1+1 together, I guess. For yeah.
Okay, we do also know that Paludan had sparked outrage and condemnation across the Islamic world when he burnt a copy of the Quran in front of the Turkish embassy in Stockholm, and that was in January 2023. At that point, the Turkish court issued an arrest warrant for the far-right leader, and I'm wondering, would that warrant of arrest have stood? I mean, a Turkish court issuing it, it would mean that he would have had to be in Turkey for that warrant to become effective.
That's correct. Yes. So because Paludan is an extreme right politician who is both a politician in Sweden and Denmark, is also dual citizen. There was no risk of them extraditing for such an offense or request of a Turkish state. So that's basically the gist of it. But just to kind of mention the intention, it's seemingly behind the Quran burnings and all this incitement of hatred towards Muslims in Sweden and Denmark, for Paludan, is actually there to provoke such reactions as Turkish state did, or the demonstrations, or the violence, especially amongst the Muslim minorities in Sweden and Denmark, and that has, I mean, partly succeeded in the sense that the Muslim world reacted very vocally, and that the Muslim minorities in Sweden and Denmark, specifically in Sweden, have also been very vocal against it, and there was some rioting going on as well during the spring of 2022, and also also the fall of 22. Yes.
Now, as you and I speak this morning, Professor, we also know that there's been those racial clashes taking place in the UK. It's gotten so badly out of hand. it started on a rumor that it was a Muslim that had killed those little girls, the three little children, which was a horrific act, absolutely unforgivable. Uh, and then, of course, we've now seen the result of that. People going on false information and went on this ongoing rampage
Yes.
on Muslims, their homes, their businesses, and their persons as well. What does that type of action tell you about Islamophobia?
Yeah, so that's right. So this event or the series of events that have taken place in the UK is symptomatic of the
Professor, I think we've lost you. Hello, are you still there? Oh gosh, we really haven't had a great morning regarding technical issues, and I know it's out of everyone's hands here. Nobody's to blame for the bad lines, the unstable lines. Um, as much as we've been wanting to give you a morning of excellent news and views coverage, the internet has been so unstable. So we do apologize for that. I don't even think, I'm not sure if we can still attempt to get hold of the professor. Let's give it one attempt, but if we can't, we'll try and get him back on air tomorrow morning. So let's just get the thumbs up. Yes, brilliant. We've got him back again. Professor, welcome back. Can you hear me? Professor, are you there?
Yes, I am. So apologies, the connection got lost.
Yes, I know. Sorry about that. Okay, so do you want to continue saying what you were saying
Yes,
just now?
uh, yes, absolutely. So the events that have occurred in the UK and other places around Europe, which are in much smaller scale, are symptomatic of this underlying and deep entrenched hatred towards Muslims that has been growing and brewing for quite some time. I would say post September 11th, we have seen similar rhetoric that has been kind of whipping up the hatred against Muslims and Islam across Europe. And this is the fruit of that type of hatred that has been growing. So hopefully it will not get worse, but the risk is much higher that would happen. So between politicians such as Paludan, they are really desiring this and wanting this to happen. That's why they have whipped up this type of stunts and demonstrations, burning of Quran to kind of incite Muslim reaction. Andreas Behring Breivik, the Norwegian mass murderer, has had similar type of reaction and has explicitly claimed that that's the intention to stoke hatred and division amongst the population, specifically Muslim minorities and the non-Muslim majorities.
And we know it's absolutely rife in Europe. Let's come back to Paludan. He is a right-wing politician. Do you not suppose that this court order against him, this prosecution, is going to stoke up a lot of hatred and Islamophobic attacks on the Muslim minorities in Norway and in Sweden? It almost seems as if it's possibly the wrong time that this is happening.
Well, I'm not sure about that. It's for me, as far I mean, looking at from these events. I mean, the legal prosecution of Paludan's actions. Uh, I'm not sure that will be the case, but it definitely will. The legal and judicial process needs to take place in order to test the Swedish law. And since the right-wing government in Sweden is really not very sympathetic towards Muslim minorities in Sweden. As a matter of fact, they are trying to limit uh, Muslim civil society organizations to function properly in this country. They are not interested in changing the law. As a matter of fact, they would like to make these type of stunts easier to happen. Unfortunately, but I don't think this process, as we see it now, will provoke any anger from the Muslim minorities. They will just observe and see what's going on, and eventually they will have to accept the outcome of the court, whatever it is, right?
All right, Professor, I see that you are Associate Professor of Religion at Uppsala University, based in Sweden. I've always wanted to try and understand the psychology of racism and Islamophobia. What have you come across in your studies and in your research? Why is it that we have this type of hatred towards a particular minority group, be it based on religion, color, ethnicity, whatever it is? And it
Yes.
also seems to me, very sadly, that Islamophobia is on the rise in the Western world.
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer over a few minutes. But I can tell you like this: there is this, or has been this huge sense of identity crisis in large parts of Western Europe, and that's why nationalism after the 1990s and well into the 2000s came to be a safe point for many of the nationalists and these marginal groups and movements which have grown out from the crisis and a conflict, Cold War conflict. Now, a lot of population now here in Western Europe and also in Sweden are looking for this identity, commonality, communal feeling, and nationalism becomes this safe point. Now, when nationalism goes into overdrive, it becomes these extreme feelings are born out of it, and most likely these feelings have not been able to bubble up and dominate the public discourse for many decades. But now we see that these fringe and marginal feelings of loss of identity and so on and so forth have become much more pronounced, and they have the hatred and the spearhead of such these strong feelings have been aimed at Muslim minority groups, because Muslim minority groups have been growing over several decades, and we've seen crises and wars and genocides happening from the mid 1990s until today, and that's why the most visible minority amongst the non-Muslim Western European majorities is the Muslim minority, because they have kept the sense of identity, they have kept the sense of faith and communal organizing and so on and so forth, right? And then the majority population feels threatened by this strong sense of identity among Muslim minorities. That would be one theory that is quite common amongst the researchers.
Okay, let's just wrap up by looking at the trial date. We understand it won't be expected to last for 2 days, but is there a sense in Sweden as to what sort of a sentence will be placed on supposedly Paludan?
Well, that's very difficult to speculate. Obviously, without, let's say, serious ground for sentence, the prosecutor would not be raising this, right? So that's one way of looking at it. Another way would be that prosecutor is trying to also see how the courts are interpreting the law today, 2024, instead of 2 years prior. And that also changes with time. So the courts have, or let's say, individual judges and also people who are jurists who are responsible for sentencing will also change, and the interpretation change. So we'll see some legal gymnastics happening going forward. So it's very, very hard to see or to foresee the outcome of the judicial process at this point.
So that's where we leave it, Professor. I have no doubt that we will talk some more once the trial does in fact see the light of day, and then we can have a more detailed discussion. But I thank you indeed for your time and your insights on this matter. Take care, keep safe, and God bless.
All right. Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
7 after 10 o'clock, time for me to wrap up. Thank you indeed for your time on the show this morning. Hope we have a hassle-free, technical-free morning tomorrow, inshallah. Enjoy the rest of the day. And as always, stay safe on the roads. Assalamu alaikum and Khudafiz from me, Julie Ali.